Good day, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Some people 2 o'clock in the morning, some people in the evening. It's a very, very diverse crowd that we have on board here this evening. We've got 14 smiling faces, and I'm sure we'll get a few more before we get through with the meeting. Today is an interesting day. Today, I'm not wearing a suit jacket. I decided that because I'm in Florida and the sun's shining here, I should wear a bright yellow Rotary shirt. So that's what I did. I went and pulled one out of my collection, and I'm bright yellow. Normally I dress up a little bit for these meetings, but today I decided to do something different. And I think should be the theme that we think about going forward for today. We need to be thinking about what can we do to brighten up our lives and the lives of the people around us. There are many, many people out there who are suffering a little bit. They've been through the lockdown, they've been through the virus for a long period of time. They have figured out how to get by, but they're still struggling to get emotional back to where they were before, to get to that high, to get to that spontaneous effort of helping people and feeling good about life and feeling good about things. We need to brighten their days. So if you can think about the people around you, how you can brighten their day, I'm not quite sure. Today, I was talking to somebody from Moscow, and they said it had gotten quite cool. They said it's sometimes cloudy there. So I told them, when I come back from Florida, I will bring the sunshine with me. We will shine again. We will make people smile again. We will pick up their spirits. And I think this is what we need to think about at our club meeting tonight. How can we pick up the spirits of the people around us? Coming in the very near future, and it's going to be interesting to the members of this club, 21 September. Does anyone know what that day is? 21 September?
International Day of Peace.
Thank you. Thank you. International Day of Peace on 21 September, coming up in a week and a half. And so much of what we talk about at this club and at these meetings are about peace around the world. We talk about peace polls. We talk about what all the different ICCs are doing, because we've got so many of them that we've had on the screen here already at our meeting, giving their presentations. So we need to be thinking about that coming up in the near future. What are we going to do in our individual clubs to try and celebrate that day if possible? Most of us are still online clubs. Some of you are meeting, but most of us are still online. So we're going to have to think about how we can celebrate that International Peace Day. So these are my opening thoughts as your president of the club tonight. How can we brighten people's spirit? How can we help celebrate this International Peace Day? And how can we go forward to continue what we're doing right now? We are getting more and more members. I had a conversation with someone the other day and talked about the expat clubs. You just heard Natalia earlier talking about the fact that there's members from different countries coming to her club. I think with Zoom and with the online presence, we're going to get more mixed clubs of people, Rotarians around the world who are joining different clubs for different reasons. Maybe their heritage years ago was from another country. Maybe it's a place they want to go to and work. They're not sure, but they want to find out more. They can join in clubs. They can switch from one club to another club. They can be participating in the clubs themselves and passing out that knowledge of being international. So this is really important that we think about how to spread the happiness and how to keep this going. Okay. Enough of my comments as the president. I would like to hear from Randall, our secretary. Do you have any messages or notes or anything you'd like to pass out, Randall?
Michael, just on the issue of Vladivostok. So on the 25th, 26th of September, there is the first assembly in our district, which will take place in Vladivostok. I'm not sure if it's going to have an online component that we can join or not. It starts at 9:30 on the 25th, which is a Saturday, 9:30 Vladivostok time. Maybe that's when Natalia's club is going to be officially chartered. I know that Yevgenia's new club in Vladivostok is also being chartered officially at the end of September. So every year we have, I hope I'm correct, that we have 4 regions. Maybe we have 5. We have each region in our district, we're a pilot district, has its own regional assembly. So the first one of the year starts on the 25th, 26th, and it's in Vladivostok, where our district governor Margarita is based. So all of us, if it is going to be held online, then all of us could join, which would be wonderful.
Randall, at 9:30 is at 9:30 a.m., p.m. and is at Vladivostok time.
9:30 a.m. Vladivostok time.
Thank you. Okay.
And that's all the news I have, except that Natalia Kunzer is online, just so you know, and she's going to be our speaker next week.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Very good. And the other Natalia that we have from Vladivostok, if you know about that meeting on the 25th and 26th being online, if you'll pass that information to Randall or I, we will try to make the meeting. We will try to be there to see if we can do that. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to check the time for myself where I'm at in the US, but we probably, one or two of us could probably make that meeting and be there also. So we just need to know you're there on the spot. So you're going to know sooner than we will. So if you'll let us know, we would appreciate that. Thank you very much. So we got a few people who chimed in after I was saying hello to everyone else. Of course, again, as Randall said, Natalia Kunzer, welcome. You're going to be our speaker here shortly. Tom, good to see you again, Tom Roth. Who else did I miss on the screen? I think that's about everybody I got. I think so. Okay. You know, we have a speaker this evening, and we found out about him in a roundabout way. He showed up at one of our meetings, I don't know, a few weeks or a month ago. He showed up at one of our meetings, and we seen that symbol on his behind his head there on the wall, talking about that Pacific, Russian-American Pacific Partnership. And so we asked him what it was, and he gave us a few words. Ideal person to bringing in to be a guest speaker to match the other folks that we've been speaking to. We've heard from so many of the different Russian and other country ICCs, 5 or 6 of them already, and we're going to hear from more of them in the future. So this is not an ICC, but it is a complementary, in my opinion. I use that word myself. It was not given to me, but I think it's a complementary to what we're doing. I think that it can work alongside of what we're doing, and certainly should be of interest to Rotarians. Derek Norberg is the president and founder of the Council of U.S.-Russian Relations and director of the Executive Secretariat of Russian-American Pacific Partnership, RAPP. So that means he knows how to rap. Eric, are you going to tell us how to rap tonight? You're going to do your thing, and do a little rap for us? No? Maybe. Okay, we'll have to wait and see about that. But this is a long-running bilateral agreement that has been going on, an engagement between Russia and the U.S. in the Pacific region. He's going to be telling us about that tonight. He's got over 30 years of experience working with Russians. He has worked himself in Russia, a couple different cities on the East Coast, and he has experience in working with the culture of Russia. And just visiting, just going temporarily does not give you the understanding that you need to have of the culture. I know I've been there for 15 years and I'm still learning it, still trying to learn the culture. So I'm interested in hearing what Derek has learned, what his organization is doing, and he's going to be speaking to us for about 30 to 40 minutes. When he is finished, then we'll have questions and answers. I'm sure there's going to be some questions and answers for you, Derek, this evening after we get done. So without taking any more of your stage time, I'll turn the screen over to Derek, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Derek Norberg. He's not speaking yet, so.
Well, I'm just curious, have you turned the screen over to me? I'm not sure I see that on my end.
You can share screen if you need to share screen. You can go ahead.
Oh,
Derek.
well, I'm sorry. So am I actually, are you guys seeing me now on the screen?
Yes, yeah.
We can see your
okay,
face.
fine. Okay, I just, on my end, I don't see that, so I wasn't sure. In any case, Michael, thank you very much for that introduction. And I want to thank in particular Randall Eastman and as well as David Fishman for first of all bringing me to the meeting last month that I attended with the club, and then Randall, of course, for inviting me to speak here today and to provide a brief on the 26 years of the Russian-American Pacific Partnership Forum. I will now switch over to the presentation, and at the end, as Michael has mentioned, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that people have. In presenting on that, I want to start with a little bit of context on the Pacific Northwest relations with the Russian Far East. Of course, the U.S. West Coast has a deep history with Russia through the Russian-American company headquartered in St. Petersburg, over a century ago, with outposts in Sitka, Alaska, and Fort Ross, California. But here I want to mention in particular the among many ventures that actually started with Russia and the Russian Far East in the 1990s, a couple of early ones. And this is the Soviet U.S. joint venture Marine Resources Company that ran fishing operations off Alaska and Washington and Oregon coasts from 76 through 1990. I have 2001 on the screen for the end of when the company actually closed, but those joint venture fishing operations provided a lot of us, including myself, the opportunity to go work on Soviet factory trawlers out on the high seas and get some real deep immersion experience with Russians back in the Soviet days. And also, these Russian fishing vessels made regular port calls in West Coast ports of Seattle, Astoria, Portland, and Dutch Harbor. And in addition, Alaska Airlines started in the 1970s some novelty Samovar service charter flights to the Soviet Union. And then in the 1990s, launched more significant regular year-round service from Anchorage, Alaska to a number of Far East cities in Russia. In another context of connection for Seattle with Russia were the Goodwill Games in 1990, which were major sporting events over the entire summer held in Seattle that received extensive coverage in Russia, perhaps more so even than in the United States. At the time, I can say that Russians knew Seattle through these Goodwill Games in ways that I'd not entirely expected, but constantly Russians on the ships were talking to me about the Seattle Goodwill Games. This is all to demonstrate that the Pacific Northwest and Seattle in particular had some rather unique relations with Russia and the Far East that set the stage for the new Russian Federation's first president, Boris Yeltsin, choosing to visit Seattle on his US trip in 1994. And I also, at the bottom here, I just want to mention that in addition to all the business ventures in the 1990s, the United States had a wide range of USAID, principally USAID funded, but not only, partner activities that were operating across Russia, and with many of them in the Russian Far East. And that was because of Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska pressing for an earmark whereby 25% of the funding that was going for assistance programs in Russia had to be for the Russian Far East. So that was something that Alaska did in particular for the Russian Far East. So in 1994, Boris Yeltsin, president, comes to the United States and specifically requests to visit Seattle. And the visit took the United States government somewhat by surprise. I was told by some State Department officials that back at that time, they were quickly dispatched to Seattle to figure out what was going on here that was bringing the Russian president, out to what for Washington, D.C. sometimes seems a rather small, sleepy town on the West Coast. Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown met Boris Yeltsin on his arrival, as did U.S. Ambassador Pickering, and of course with Washington State Governor Mike Lowry. And the visit was a huge success. And during meetings in Seattle, the Russian side, in fact, proposed establishing some sort of special relations or considerations for trade development between Washington State and the Russian Federation. Well, the US government could not see how you could do that for one state and not others. So after some deliberations and ministerial meetings, both sides, the US West Coast Russian Far East Ad Hoc Working Group was established. And that actually launched then in 1995 with its first meeting held in Seattle, Washington. And that was organized by Carol Vipperman, seen at the top left picture, with her organization, the Foundation for Russian American Economic Cooperation, also a non-government nonprofit here in Seattle. And beyond fisheries, timber, and trade, which were sort of the focus of this organization initially, there was one particular looming opportunity that was developing with the Russian Far East. And that was actually the oil and gas projects on Sakhalin Island. And here we have the signing of the Sakhalin 1 production share agreement in Moscow in June 1995. And over time, these two projects on Sakhalin, Sakhalin 1 and Sakhalin 2, Sakhalin 1 being a consortium of companies led by ExxonMobil. And but these projects would create a wide range of opportunities for technical and professional services on Sakhalin, and bring a number of US and international companies to the island. And over time, it was interesting to see how significantly that changed the business climate of the Sakhalin region. And the ExxonMobil-led consortium Sakhalin 1 remains today the largest US investment in Russia. Now, I started to put the presentation together and thought to go through, each and every meeting over 26 years, and I thought that didn't make a lot of sense. So I'm just going to kind of go through, a number of meetings and note that the forum, despite many ups and downs in US-Russia relations, has managed to deliver each year an annual meeting bringing together Russian Far East regional governments, US West Coast states where we can get their participation, companies from both sides, non-commercial organizations, NGOs, environmental groups, private citizens. And the forum over these years, when you go back to 1995 and 96 and the 90s, in fact, the forum brought Russian federal government officials to the Russian Far East, many of whom had never been to the Russian Far East. And so the forum for the Russian Far East regions was important also in their relations with the Russian federal government, which is interesting to note. Here I want to note also that in the previous slide, in the signing of the PSA, we had Jan Kalitsky in the top left picture here. The gentleman seated with the earpieces in closest to us is in fact Jan Kalitsky, who was the U.S. Ombudsman for Energy and Commercial Relations with Russia, who co-chaired the first 5 RAPP meetings for the U.S. government side. So we had very, very strong U.S. government participation in the forum during those early years in particular. In the later years of the 1990s, we benefited from these many U.S. government-funded programs across the Russian Far East. And this included the U.S.-Russia Investment Fund, where I worked, and when I lived in Khabarovsk for 2 years, WinRock, the American Business Centers, Counterpart International, IREX, and many others. And these organizations used the RAPP forum, in fact, as an opportunity to brief U.S. federal government representatives on their activities. And so it was sort of an annual gathering in part. It was an annual gathering for all of the assistance programs in the U.S. government, sort of coordinating their activities. In 2002, at the meeting in Anchorage, Alaska, the forum decided that calling itself an ad hoc working group endlessly made no sense. And so it adopted a new name, Russian American Pacific Partnership, in fact, to signify a longer term, if not permanency, for the organization. Here on this slide, I just want to note at the bottom 2 particular early participants in RAPP, being Sergei Rybkov, who is recognizable as the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs today of the Russian Federation. And then also John Byerly, Ambassador John Byerly, one of my favorite U.S. ambassadors to Russia, joined in a couple of the meetings. In 2016, for the U.S. side, U.S. state participation, I'll talk about it later, but U.S. state participation has always been a bit of a challenge. U.S. states typically don't see Russia as a high priority for their international outreach and relations. However, in 2016, then Governor of California, Jerry Brown, actually made a special early departure from the Democratic National Committee conference and came specifically rushed back to San Francisco in order to be at the RAPP meeting and meet with the heads of the Russian Far East delegations, seen in the picture here. At that meeting in San Francisco, the Primorsky region delivered an invitation to Governor Brown to come to the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok in 2017, which the governor subsequently accepted. I was able to join him in Vladivostok when he came in 2017. And at the meeting, he delivered a call for greater international and interregional climate change cooperation, which I think was particularly insightful of him to be doing in 2017, even though we all recognize that problem has existed. It now is becoming particularly relevant and acute. And so Governor Brown was a little bit ahead of some of the rest of us on making that appeal. Now, in general, just some general statements. Obviously, I've talked a little bit about the meetings and the government attendees. Most fundamentally, what I want to impress here is the important role that RAPP plays in empowering people. The meeting by design is participant driven, and it provides the RAPP participants opportunity for their input during the meeting and particularly in formulating the recommendations that are derived from the annual meeting that are addressed to the governments of both sides. This is a somewhat unique process, particularly in the Russian context. Rarely do you see forums that are so bottom-up driven by participants. But the Russian federal and regional governments now have come to expect and embrace what initially seemed an unconventional process. At the meetings, the attendees formulate the recommendations, and we rely on the active participation of the participants in a working session during the meeting, and based on their input and recommendations, we formulate the working session report as well as ultimately the summary report of the meeting, and which is delivered as a collective product of the meeting attendees. We do not assign credit or responsibility for that report to any one person or the sponsors of the RAPP meeting, but rather it is a collective. It is a reflection of the collective RAPP meeting attendees. Another unique feature of the forum is that it is open registration, affording access for a wide and rich variety of perspectives from all sectors and disciplines. And that's something we've guarded and protected very carefully. Business, government, scholars, academics, NGOs, RAPP is particularly noted for bringing a wide variety of interests together and in common purpose at the RAPP meeting. And by common purpose, I mean that ultimately we're all working on, finding solutions to accelerate and advance cooperation, whether it is commercial, non-commercial, educational, just people to people. And despite everyone coming from different perspectives and interests, that seems to be a general premise that everyone can support. And so here, for instance, you see in the photo one of the working group sessions from a meeting on Kamchatka, where you have a environmental NGO leader working as a co-chair along with a Boeing company executive. And so, but they're all working on a general idea of cooperation development that everyone can get behind. In addition, I want to note that oil and gas company representatives have let me know that at the RAPP meetings, some of the most valuable presentations for them are in fact coming from environmental NGOs at the meetings. So they actually want to hear from what they have to say, what their perspectives are, and that's extremely important for them. In one of the characteristics of RAPP meetings is the high degree to which attendees come together in common cause. So here I just wanted to share a few ideas. I'm just going to run through these quickly, not to read them all, but the keys to our success. Non-government organization, nonprofit running this. I'm just going to mention that when the difficulties over Ukraine and Crimea occurred in U.S.-Russia relations, the fact that we were a non-government organization actually allowed us to continue holding the meeting. Had we been a U.S. government entity, we most likely would have been stopped and not allowed to continue our meetings 2014, 15, 16. There was a general policy on the U.S. government side of non-engagement during those years. except at the highest levels. And so, but the US government did tell me, as I am a non-government organization, that while they would not attend the meeting in 2014, the RAPP meeting, they encouraged me to go forward and to work more closely with US states and regional governments and handle it at a subnational government level, which we were able to do. And so I just mentioned that I think, cooperation, close cooperation with the government is important, but independence from the government when US-Russia relations get tough, in our case, proved to be critically important. That we focus on the Trans-Pacific and Arctic, which are areas of greater common interest, less conflict, less disagreement. That's critical to our success. Our ability to change and adapt the agenda according to changes in the environment. Every year, different opportunities arise, different priorities, and we change the agenda and even the format of the meeting where it's appropriate to do so. Credibility, over 26 years of working now with the Russian government and the US government, people change, and sometimes we have to reestablish who we are and reintroduce ourselves. But generally, RAPP is recognized as being a serious and honest broker on both sides. And that's been very important. Relationships that we've developed with the Russian Far East regions in particular, very, very strong. I've got friends and people I've known there for, well over a decade, if not more. Some of them I've known even longer than that, going back to when I was with the US-Russia Investment Fund. US states are, as I said, a little bit more of a challenge. Russia does not rate very high as a trade partner for many of the US West Coast states, less so in recent years. And then, of course, when you have a global pandemic issue like COVID, it very much distracts attention away from the importance of relations with the Far East. And our history of support with private sector, very good generally. Some problems more recently, but again, that's sort of an issue of the, some of the economic fallout from the pandemic. Risk factors, I would mention, obviously, the travel restrictions and particularly the lack of visa applications even being processed in Russia on the US side at the moment. That's a real problem for us. We hope to be returning the meeting from virtual, as we held this year, to actual face-to-face meetings, but we need people to be able to travel to do that. Obviously, bilateral intergovernmental relations, that is a given that is a risk factor for us. The relatively low US activities in the Russian Far East, and this is commercial and non-commercial, that is a problem. Obviously, we're all about developing more activities. That we are a small organization with a very big job, insufficiently funded at the moment. That's that is also a factor. In terms of opportunities, I have to note that the governments on both sides, I think in part because relations have gotten so bad, that they appear far more interested in receiving recommendations from RAPP than I have seen in many years. So I think that's a good opportunity for us. There is, of course, special interest in the Arctic region and around the issue of climate change, and that creates, again, specific opportunities. And here I'd mention that that's also between our governments, but that's also the Russian Far East regions. There are many regions, particularly in the far north of Russia. Here I'm talking about Sakha, Yakutia, Chukotka in particular. I mean, these are regions for whom climate change in the Arctic, is on their territory. When you talk about permafrost melt and what that's doing to the foundations of buildings in Yakutsk and other cities farther north, these buildings are anchored in permafrost. When the permafrost melts, they become unstable. These are very immediate issues for them. And I want to point out that in July of this year, Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry in Moscow said that the key is to deal with the climate issue separately, that it's too important, too significant, that we need to move together. And this was speaking to the Russian government, the meeting with Lavrov. So again, what he was calling for there is a separate track for climate change issues. And I think that's important, that cooperation in vitally existential issues like climate change are allowed to go forward despite our agreements, perhaps in other areas. And I'm glad to see the U.S. government at such a high level expressing that. And then, I just want to mention in terms of some of the new opportunities in and outside government, one opportunity is that the Ministry for the Development of the Far East and Arctic stepped up their participation at the RAPP meeting this year quite significantly. And I very much enjoyed their participation and an address by the minister, Chekunkov, to the RAPP meeting. He delivered a letter of address, and I am pursuing a more formal relationship with that ministry in the RAPP forum from the Russian government side as we go forward, which I think will be very helpful to us. And last but not least was, of course, interest to explore opportunities, with many parties, including with Rotary clubs and with the Rotary ICC for U.S. and Russia, which I think would be very interesting I am very excited at the possibility of looking at how we might be able to work with clubs and the ICC going forward in common interest. And so with that concludes the general presentation, and I'd be certainly happy to then also answer any questions. And before I turn it back to Michael, I just want to add there are further details on the website. We have a beautiful URL that I managed to secure for us, which is just usrussia.org. And we are finalizing currently the summary report, and the recommendations are done from the RAPP meeting, but we are finalizing now the bigger summary report, which will be posted online and available hopefully by the end of this month. But it's a major task because it has to be in 2 languages and reviewed and agreed on both sides, and it's a lot of fun. So with that, thank you all for this opportunity to tell you a bit about Council for U.S.-Russia Relations and the RAPP forum that we run, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Derek, will you please turn off your screen share right now? So we have the whole screen. There you go. Thank you very, very much. First of all, to 1 second, Barton, there's going to be several questions. Barton's going to be first. Before we go forward, though, I'd like to thank you, Derek, because I know you showed up about a month or so ago at one of our meetings at an invite of another person, but you showed up and you showed interest, and then you're invited to come back, and today you gave us a good presentation. So thank you very, very much for your presentation today. Okay, so we will have some questions for you. Barton, you had your hand up. If you would like to turn your microphone on, Barton, and tell us what your question is.
So thank you very much for that excellent presentation, Derek. I'm the incoming president for the U.S.-Russia ICC. And having been a past district governor for the Washington, D.C. area, I've been involved in some of these Russian activities for quite some time. So here's my questions. We have official diplomacy and we have quiet diplomacy. You mentioned in your discussion about risks, the poor state of bilateral intergovernment relationships, but you also mentioned on the quiet diplomacy, some of the real great work that you've been able to accomplish, if you will, below the radar. So I got a couple of questions. What, if any, relationship does the council have with the current administration, and how do they support you, if at all, in official diplomacy efforts? And then two, you've become aware of Rotary, or maybe I've worked with Rotary in the past, but you're desirous of working with the ICC for common interest. I have very mixed feelings about, is it official or is it quiet diplomacy that one should be working on with Russia to make a difference?
Well, you know, I would let me tackle the first part of your question first. Again, the relationship with the governments is, you know, one that we, again, as a non-government entity, we meet, you know, normally under normal conditions when I can travel a little bit more. I regularly would, you know, visit Moscow maybe a couple times a year, meet with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Economic Development, now Ministry for the Development of the Far East and Arctic, and then with the U.S. Embassy and Ambassador, and maybe the DCM and some other, you know, people there, as well as traveling to Washington, D.C., and then do the rounds of Commerce, State Department. So in a normal year, that's sort of the way we've done that. Now with, you know, not having the opportunity to travel quite as much, we do it by, you know, emails and but the U.S. government support this year was reflective in high-level participation. So Ambassador Sullivan, you know, participating live in the Zoom meeting, as well as James DeHart, the coordinator for the Arctic region for the State Department. You know, in addition, there was actually a grant that was issued to us through the embassy in Moscow with the State Department. So, you know, there is support and recognition, I would say, that in this year in particular, the RAPP meeting appeared to them, and this is the mission in Moscow. So State Department people at the mission in Moscow as the only, as they termed it, the only and best opportunity to maintain the important relationships that we have in the Russian Far East. So we were, I think, pointed out by them to be a particularly important opportunity for preservation of key relationships this year in particular. You know, the Russian government side, there is no formal, in a way, it's sort of interesting. We're not really a bilateral agreement because I don't know that there ever has been an agreement signed on RAPP. We are sort of a 26-year established forum mechanism, but we're not, it's not on paper, which I think is nice insofar as it gives us, you know, certain flexibilities that might not have been the case if it had been a more rigid agreement. And I'm sorry, the second part of the question was?
Well, it's just the whole issue of how best to work in common interest with the ICC or with Rotary, who has a short leash, another few years to determine whether it still makes sense to actively promote Rotary in Russia, or whether it's just not the right thing for Rotary at this time.
Right, and I think your initial question was more about the soft versus soft. Yeah,
I had
I want to address that. I think you need to actually work both soft. I mean, our ability to influence the U.S. federal government policy toward Russia at the highest level. I think where we have opportunities to provide, again, the recommendations, and you'll see some samples of these very shortly because I'll publish the recommendations from the latest meeting. And we've got also recommendations from prior years up on our website if you want to also look at those. But generally speaking, we try to approach recommendations that are not going to smack either government upside the head too hard. So we formulate them in ways that it would be acceptable to both sides, but we do try to be as honest and meaningful as we can in those recommendations. So I think we need, all of us who care about U.S.-Russia relations need to find those avenues or opportunities where we can make a difference. But at the same time, I think oftentimes that may be, and I'm not sure it's soft versus, a highest level government. The soft diplomacy we do oftentimes is working with regional governments. So it's just subnational. But for instance, California, a lot of what went into the Paris Accord started with California working inter-regional agreements with various regions of foreign countries before they became national agreements. And so, one of the things I was very taken by in this, writing the summary report of this year's RAPP meeting was how many Russian regions are expressing interest in region to region or Russian region to U.S. state cooperation on things like climate change. And Washington State Governor Inslee also made that appeal. So there's a common appeal being made on both sides. The question is, how do we put these people together and get them to do something that they're both asking for? And in terms of the, ICC and Rotary, my interest is to explore some of this, whether it makes sense for Rotary or the ICC. That's for you guys to decide. I'm aware that, or at least my opinion, is that we don't always have a lot of opportunities to make recommendations to our governments or to have them be considered in terms of the policy, for relations between our nations. And so, where we can do that and where we can do it in a way that is not politically offensive to either side, that could, because obviously Rotary has to think very hard, particularly, Rotary staying in Russia has to be very careful that it is not seen to be a foreign influencer of events and politics in Russia. And so, but at the same time, I feel like if we really don't, try to improve relations, and there is a political element to that between our countries, then we're not talking about the elephant in the room. And we may do some very nice things for each other, and that's very important. I mean, I'm not at all discounting non-political humanitarian efforts are extremely important. But at the same time, if RAPP looks to be, or if ICC determines that RAPP could be, a way of engaging with regional governments and even, providing some useful, beneficial recommendations to both our governments on ways to improve relations, I'd be, happy to have, cooperation. And that may be only just more Rotarians attending the meetings. It need not necessarily be, a formal agreement between the ICC and my organization. As you can see in the way I run the forum, I'm all for informal, relationships. As long as they work for all sides, then, why complicate them with paper?
Okay, very good. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. And those are good questions, Barton. Very, very important questions that I think are on a lot of people's minds. We have other people on the screen. Who else would like to ask a question, please? Anyone else? Raise your hand. Yeah, Randall, go right ahead. Randall, jump in there.
I have a question and I have a statement or suggestion. I'm not sure if you're aware, Derek, but Rotary in Russia used to be split into two halves. And it's now joined into one district, which is 2223. The district governor this year is Margarita, who is based in Vladivostok, from the Vladivostok Club. I mentioned earlier, she will have a district regional assembly in September, but also at the end of the year, she'll have a district conference. And there are many clubs in the Russian Far East, and perhaps you might be interested in speaking to them if you're comfortable doing that in Russian, as you're doing here today in English. Many of the clubs have 20, 25 years history, so that's a good thing. And I'm sure they would love to hear from you. I want to ask you on a personal note, how and what compelled you to be working on a Russian trawler, how long you did that, and what kind of takeaways you brought from that experience, because that's a little bit unusual.
Yeah, well, there's probably a longer explanation of that, but the short explanation is I grew up in San Francisco in a neighborhood with a small Russian community that had actually emigrated to San Francisco in like 1906, and had lots of friends in that community, a general interest in Russia, perhaps because of that, but then studied political science in college, came out of college. There weren't a lot of opportunities to work with or in Russia in 1985. Then I guess by 1988, I had found this joint venture company in Seattle that was running these. I guess my father brought to me an article from a Stanford Review journal that sort of highlighted this fishing operations in Alaska and off the Oregon-Washington coast as an opportunity to go work on Soviet trawlers. And so I applied and went to work on that, and had this experience of spending up to 6 months of the year out on Soviet ships, I would say what I found through that experience, and not only that experience, but then working with Russia in a variety of capacities, and also living in Khabarovsk for a couple of years in the 90s, was I think I have always been pushed back on the idea that we are so very different, that that Russians and Americans are just so terribly different. I found a lot of commonality of my childhood and early years and what we used to do, and what I would talk to young Russians on the ships that I would meet and befriend, that their childhoods and my childhoods actually weren't all that different in terms of just the most fundamental things that we were interested in and did as children. And I would say, one other thing that I, noticed was the tremendous resourcefulness of Russians to deal with problems. And this, I think, I saw where, we would bring out electronics, 120 volt, 110, 120 volt, US grade electronics, go on the Soviet ships, plug them into the 220 wall socket and fry them. That was just common. Those electronics were basically garbage at that point from the US side. You just throw that away. There's nothing you can do with that. The Russian, radio operator would, before I would throw it away, would rush over and say, no, give that to me. I'll work on that. you know, 3 or 4 days later, he'd come back and he had it working again. And so likewise, also the Russians, they're just their ability to look at a problem differently than we do was reflected, I think, in some of the work that was done. I think it was Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken, that told me this, that they actually set up some teams of Americans working on their own, Americans working with variety nationalities, and Americans working with Russians. And in terms of and then also, what they found was that, as good as the Russians were working for them on a variety of IT problems, the best results seemed to come when you actually would put, teams together with Russians and Americans working on it, using the differences in the approaches of their minds, how they look at problems, that actually they were very complementary and delivered a higher result putting them all together. So I think, in short, I think my experience has been, and then also, I'm sorry, when I worked in Khabarovsk for 2 years, my right-hand person, an economist who was working with me, a Russian national in Khabarovsk, just tremendous person. So my feeling is that through my experience, cooperation, understanding the other side, understanding their strengths, and understanding, how to approach people to get the best the outcomes is extremely important. And I think, over the years that I've worked with Russia, that's something certainly I've tried to do. I don't know if I've always been successful, but
Okay.
but I think it's very key to all of us in working, across borders and working with other cultures and other people to, understand, how best to approach people and do that in a, respectful and positive way.
Okay, thank you, Derek. The question is primarily about working on a trawler, and the reason Randall asked it was he's a sailor. So being a sailor, he was interested in how you want to get in the trailer. But your comments about the difference of cultures and putting them together is very, very insightful. That's very, very helpful for us. Also, we have Helge. Helge has a question for you. Go ahead, Helge. You need to unmute yourself, please.
Now you read me, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this has been a very nice evening and very interesting to listen to you, Derek. One personal question, your name Norberg seems Scandinavian or maybe Swedish, Norwegian. Is it?
It is Swedish.
It's Swedish, okay.
Yeah. What we don't know is whether that was really the family name in Sweden, or whether possibly in coming through Ellis Island, someone put down the name of the town in the family name, because Norberg, of course, is also a mining town,
Exactly.
not so far north out of Stockholm.
Thank you. Another question is that you mentioned as to risk factors cooperating with Russia today is traveling obstacles, traveling restrictions. And I experienced, because I've been working many years with a project in Arkhangelsk at the university there. And now I experience that it is impossible for me as a Norwegian or Scandinavian to come to Arkhangelsk. And if I will go there, I have to apply to central authorities in Moscow. Is that what you experience as well?
This is for you to travel to where?
To Arkhangelsk.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if there's anything particular to Arkhangelsk and to the border crossing up there that may be different. I have not found currently. I mean, I know that there are some specific requirements now with regards to COVID-19 and
Yeah, that's
testing.
what, yeah.
But my understanding at the moment, at least for Americans, and again, it's different for different countries. Russia has now a list of countries for whom they are open, and there are some other countries that have greater restrictions on travel. The United States currently, if you have a visa, as long as you then follow the requirements for the COVID-19
Yeah.
test results,
Yeah.
Within 3
Yeah.
days of arrival, then you are allowed to travel at this point. The
Okay.
problem I was referencing was that the U.S. government is not even accepting applications for new visas for Russians, even to process them at this point.
Okay.
And that's not unique to Russia. So again, I don't want to single this out like it's an anti-Russian measure. This is actually occurring in U.S. consulates and embassies all over the world. It's basically a emergency travel only kind of approach. We just hope that that is lifted soon enough that they can start working through what is over a year backlog of visa demand. And so that even when they start again, it's going to be a real process, even just to catch up.
Thank you.
No, okay, very good. Thank you, Derek. Stan Miner, go ahead, please.
Hello, Derek, thank you very much. Sorry I came on late, but work called. I would like to know, on the Russian side, are they issuing visas for U.S. citizens? And is the process more difficult than it used to be? Or understanding the COVID requirements, other than COVID requirements, are there more restrictions or fewer visas being given out than before? Do you have any idea?
I don't have any specific details on the numbers of visas, relative to before, but I do know anecdotally, they are open and processing accepting and processing visa applications. And the people that I've talked to said, smooth as can be. So they sent off passport. Again, it's by mail. So they sent off passport with application to the embassy in DC, and received the passport back with visa a week later. So that's typical processing time. And so anecdotally, I've heard that that at least now is smooth. So U.S. citizens' ability to get visas, I haven't heard of any, huge problems at the moment. But I'll let you know if I do.
Stan, if you want to write to me directly. I deal with a company I've been dealing with for 15 years. They're just waiting for me to get my new passport and send it to them. I've checked with them already. They'll give me my passport as quickly as possible, probably 5 to 7 days, process it. No restrictions, no obligations, nothing except for the requirements for virus. The virus requirements only. Other than that, they're waiting for my passport to give you a new visa. So,
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, just if you want to contact me, I can give you their information, but they're wide open to do it. So, okay. Any other questions on the board? Anybody? Going.
I have a
don't see-
question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Natalia. Go ahead.
Hi.
You have your hand up. I didn't see it in the corner, dear. Go ahead.
That's okay. Thanks for a great presentation, Derek. A quick question. Do you work with any other organizations in the States that are also working with Russia? For instance, I've heard that there is a Russia U.S. Chamber of Commerce based somewhere in, I think, Houston, Texas. Just to keep in touch, exchange their successes or challenges, and vice versa. Do you work with others, or you just solo working with your organization in Russia?
Yeah, no. Yeah, we do in fact work with, I would say more just, over time, the greater interactions have been with the U.S.-Russia Business Council in DC, and that has to do with also, the leadership there, people I've known for many years. Have not worked as much with the chamber in Houston, but I do know them and I've met them, at various events, and we certainly, interact, but there hasn't been any kind of, real deep cooperation other than I get their newsletters and they get mine. But because we are a forum and an open forum, the RAPP forum is in fact an open registration. I mean, we do seek the participation of as many other groups as we can, and we do work with things like the World Affairs Council, and then there's the various business kind of councils on West Coast states, Anchorage, places like that, who do participate in the RAPP meetings, and we're always happy to give them voice and an opportunity to talk about what they do and what they can offer to advance Russian cooperation.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Very good. Any other questions on the screen? I don't see any other hands up, so I think that is pretty much it. Derek, thank you very, very much for your presentation and for coming by and answering our questions. Thank you very, very much. Let's give Derek a round of applause, people. Thank you for being here. And again, Derek, you're welcome to come back and join our other meetings as we continue to have interesting people. The one you just got done speaking to, Natalia, is going to be our speaker, I believe, next time, if I'm not mistaken, if I see the schedule correctly. So we will have her on board. But we try to bring people here who have that interest between Russia and the United States. And as Randall has been able to do, we brought in some Russian entrepreneurs who have gone to Russia and been successful there, which is also very interesting because a lot of other people do not know about those things outside of Russia. One of the things that I found, I'm not the oldest person in the room, but near here, the oldest in the room. When I went to school, we never heard anything about Russia other than 1917 revolution. That was about it. And maybe we saw a picture of the Big Four at the end of World War II when they got together and had their small summit. And that was about it. It was covered very lightly. So we didn't know much about it. And we are learning over a period of time to find out more and more. And this is what we need to spread. We need to let people know that Russians, the Americans, as well as many other cultures, are very, very similar. They're they have similar things. Husbands, wives, children, pay taxes, take out the garbage, have to buy food, have to repair their car. So many, many things are very, very similar around the world. Politics is a different story, but the people are quite a bit the same. So thank you for being on board tonight. We appreciate that very, very much. For all of you who would normally come to our meetings, oh, I got one more thing I want to cover. Where's Dennis? Dennis, you still with us? Dennis Wong? You still on board? Dennis, there you are. Dennis.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Dennis, can you give me very, very shortly, just 1 or 2 minutes, very, very quickly about this Rotary Red Cross, the elimination of nuclear war thing you're going to be having? I believe there's some kind of meeting coming up or something.
Yes.
I saw in the news.
Very happy to.
Chart, please. Thank you.
Group of Rotarians who are focused on world free of nuclear weapons by 2030 have contacted a number of people that we know and at the United Nations and also International Red Cross, and involved our Rotary International President, Shekhar Mehta. And so we've organized, working with the international physicians against prohibition of nuclear weapons, put together a meeting of the minds of the three organizations. I think it's a historical meeting to talk about the existential threat of nuclear weapons and the elimination of such. So I encourage you to look at the website and register and attend this meeting on September 30th. I think, again, this will be potentially a breakthrough as far as moving forward, as far as our relationship and our involvement with the United Nations and also the Red Cross. And so I posted the information and the link to the meeting. So I encourage you to register. And as I said, interesting enough, this event, I would say I'm very proud to be with a group of Rotarians. So it's Rotarian driven. and Rotarian organized meeting working with our partners. So I think it's potentially the new Rotary as far as our involvement in peace. So welcome, and I look forward to maybe, having a discussion with you all after the meeting on September 30th and see where we're going. So thank you, Michael, for this chance to share this notice.
Thank you, Dennis. And again, I saw the note earlier while Derek started, and I wanted to make sure that we get the word out about that event. And you did put it in the chat. I saw it. We took some notes. So thank you very, very much. I started to ask before I called on Dennis that our meeting was a little bit different tonight. There were a few things I did not do at the meeting when we got started. I did not have us read the four-way test. I did not read the mission of our club. And all those things will be back next week, and we will do those again as we normally do. That's how we normally start our meetings. We don't want to break away from that. We want to remember about the four-way test. And we want to remember what our mission is in Rotary. So we'll be back to that next week, but we didn't catch it this week. I'd like to find out from a few of our members if they have any information before I go to talking about the speakers that we're going to have coming up. First of all, our ex-president, previous president, Kai. Kai, do you have any comments for us this evening?
Thank you very much, Michael. So, yeah, also would like to thank you for the very interesting presentation. And yeah, I was so jealous when you told that in Florida the sun is shining. So we have very bad, awesome weather here. So exactly beginning of September, it started getting bad. And as you can hear, probably I immediately catch the cold. So enjoy Florida and send us some sun to Russia. We are waiting for the, how we call us.
I'll bring some heat
summer,
back.
so probably later. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kai. Appreciate that. Randall, any comments?
No comments, Michael.
Oh, you're very quiet tonight. That's unusual for you. Rami, I see you're on the phone. I'll pass you up and come back to you. Antonina, you're an honorary member of our organization. Any comments tonight?
Hello, everyone. My apologies for being late in joining meeting, and regrets from a friend of mine, Natalie Lechat, because she is on the road at the moment and she was not able to join us. Excellent meeting as usual. Thank you, Derek. It was very informative and encouraging, because I'm speaking from Canada, and here just by my own initiative, I manage Canadian Russian Cultural Society, and being Rotarian as well in local Rotary Club. I joined the Inter-Country Committee, Canada-Russia. So it's just a little bit about myself. And my problem at the moment is in my committee, maybe half of people who are involved are not using Facebook. So my question is to Randall, if you have Secretary Jennifer Layton email address to send her every time information about meeting or invitation from St. Petersburg to Secretary, because she promised me to share it with as many as possible Canadian districts here, Rotary districts.
Antonina, I'm sure she's on our mailing list, but maybe
Okay,
the
thank
messages
you.
are going into spam, but I will double check after this meeting.
So now I will work with her, okay? Because we created this list for mailing. And again, thank you very much for this meeting, and we'll be definitely present next time, okay?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Send our regards to Natalia. We know she would have been here if she could.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Andres Bitsy, you're a member of our club. Do you have any comments this evening?
No comments, thanks.
Okay, all right. Thank you. is one of our more silent members, but that active member when we need him. So thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. I need to go to my slide share and I need to talk about, which I didn't do earlier. I need to get through this quickly. All right, come on, picture. It's our four-way test we normally do. This was the introduction of Derek. Our project, our signature project for our club is the Children's Rehabilitation Center in St. Petersburg. And it is primarily focused on children with cerebral palsy. We are working towards that. We have a goal of 10 children for the year. We've got 4 done and almost 5th one now. So we're just a little bit behind the power curve. We expect to come out of that at the end of this month with maybe our 5th or 6th child. We're still looking for donations for these children. These children cannot walk, but every child deserves to walk, run, and play. Every child, just like all the rest of the children. They don't want to be sitting around watching. They want to be participating. These children come to us and they cannot walk. They're either carried in or come in a wheelchair to the rehabilitation center, and they get massages, they get service, they get therapy to be able to leave as a walking child, or at least a child that's starting to walk, going in that direction. And it makes a huge difference in their life, as you can imagine. This is our signature project. You can find out about them on our club website. You can also contact either Randall Eastman, who's with us this evening, or Andres Bone, and they will tell you how to make the contributions, how to make those happen. We need to keep working on this. We need to get more children to be cured of their cerebral palsy and to be able to enjoy life like the rest of the children in the world. This is our signature project for our club. Speakers. On 15th, Natalia is with us this evening. She's going to be talking on the Open World program on the 15th next week. Then on the 22nd, we have Philip here, and he's going to be talking to us about DOT glasses. And Randall, I'm not sure if you can unmute yourself on Sergey. What is his topic?
Mute my mouse. Rubius, his company is called Rubius. He makes a soundproof booth that can be placed inside offices for people to have private calls without disturbing anyone around them. It's quite unique, quite innovative.
Good. I need one of those where I'm at right now. I could use one of those little booths. So thank you very, very much.
And he's just to say one more thing. He's in Tomsk, which is where Antonina was from.
Yeah, right. And from Tomsk. Very good. This is our schedule currently. And I know Randall's talking to more people. For all the people in the audience, if you know someone that you would like to recommend to be a guest speaker, to come on board and tell us about their project or what they're working on, doesn't have to be a US, Russia, or any other country, Russia combination. If it's something as a Rotarian that Rotarian is working on, or something that they're interested in sharing with us, we would be glad to talk to them and find out if it matches what we're presenting. Because we have had several for more than a year now, speakers who really brought in a lot of audience. They're a good draw. We're getting people coming in to listen to them. And I think once we get out of September and into the fall months, we will get back up to our 30 or 40 members. Tonight, for those of you on screen, we only had 14 or 15 at one time. We were having 30 and 40 during the winter when people were not going vacations, not traveling so much and doing things. We had a large audience, and I think we will get back to that again this coming fall and winter. So thank you all very, very much for being here. Now, I'm going to open up the floor. Any comments from anybody else on the floor? How about Richard Denton? Any comment, Richard? I see you had a different picture up before, Richard. Now you got your office picture. Any comments? You're mute. Unmute yourself, please. Richard, unmute, please.
Right. Sorry. Sorry, Michael. I just want to again thank Dennis for promoting RI President Shekhar Mehta speaking on September 30th. And so that will be something that we can all watch.
Okay, very, very good. Thank you very, very much. Michael Caruso, anything, any comments?
Not too much new under the sun over here. We're still just hanging in there over in Oregon.
Okay, so yeah, you're from Beaverton. Is Natalia back from Russia, or is she still in Russia?
I understood it's going to be a couple of months. Tom Roth, do you?
Wow. Wow. Okay. For those on the screen who don't know, Natalia came over to do the peace polls. And supposedly they put some up in Moscow, and she's going other places in other cities. It's a Rotary project coming out of the Beaverton, Oregon Toastmaster Club there. I don't remember the exact name of it, but their club. What's the name, Michael, of the club there? The exact name?
I think Tom's unmuted. She's in Tom's club.
Beaverton Rotary Club, and Natalia is presently in Moscow seeking approvals. We have places, about 7 or 8 in Moscow, but the local government has not been approving the installation. So every day she's scheduling meetings to seek approvals for the installation of these peace poles. And from Moscow, she will be going to St. Petersburg the same way we have installed recently peace poles in Vladivostok, Ekaterinburg, Iriska, and other places. The program is really going forward. A lot of the Rotary clubs are jumping on board because we have a district grant that we are funding the placement and procurement of supplies for the peace poles. And we've received wonderful support from our district, Mike Caruso, Larry Strober, Al Jubitz, and others to place these peace poles. And Natalia is just a work of force, and she'll be spending probably at least another month in Russia trying to gain these approvals.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom, for the update. I know that Natalia normally is a regular visitor at our meeting, as you and Mike are, but I knew that she was over in Russia. I was just curious as an update. So thank you for that update very, very much. Appreciate that. Joan, any comments?
No, just an excellent meeting once again. I think Antonia gave you the connection to our ICC Canada Russia, and we are anxious to work with everyone involved in relationships with Russia. So no further comment. But I did enjoy what Derek had to say. There were a lot of things he made points about in it that I'm not going to go into big summary. But understanding other countries, and what particularly struck me was when he said we all grow up almost the same.
Yeah. It's amazing when you sit down with somebody over a cup of coffee or a glass of beer and you discuss it. It's so many similarities around the world. They're not so drastically different. How about Natalia from our East Coast? Natalia?
So that was very valuable meeting for me, and thank you very much for inviting me. I have already written down in the chat. And what I would say at the end, you are all of you are welcome to the Russian Far East, to Vladivostok, for the assembly. And we have twin clubs having charters during this assembly. And we are going to announce the opening of new ICC between Russia and India. And very shortly, we will announce the writing down the memorandum of understanding between two countries. And we are planning to do it in Sochi in the beginning of October, the 9th or probably 10th of October. Margarita will tell me how and when it will be. Olga Khalmagorova gave me recommendations how it should be, and we have already had a meeting between our districts, 36 districts in India and 1 in Russia. So that's the information.
Very good. Thank
very
you.
Challenging.
Thank you, and we hope to see you back again. Thank you very much. So,
Thank
Rami, do you have a comment? I know you're on the phone. Do you just want to pass?
Rami's on the phone, but Richard has something he wants to say. Let's get his hand up.
I'm sorry.
Richard has his hand up. He wants to speak again.
Yeah, just to also.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you very much, Randall and President Michael. Just wanted to let you know that thanks again to Mike Caruso We've installed 4 peace poles in our Rotary Park, and maybe Mike can send me a little bit of a history of peace poles in Rotary so that we can have it for our unveiling ceremony, which will be in a couple of weeks on Sunday, the 26th, which is the UN Day for the elimination of nuclear weapons.
Okay. Can do that.
Very good. Thank you. See, there's a lot of cooperation that comes out of this meeting. Here we are, 14, 15 people on screen, different countries, different places, all Rotarians trying to help each other. And that's what Rotary is all about. So I will go back to my opening comment as I close tonight. My opening comment was, we need to make people a little bit happier, a little bit more sunshine, like my shirt. Spread the sunshine, spread the positive. Think about other Rotarians and people who are non-Rotarians, who, because of this pandemic, may be feeling down or tired. They've been at it for 18 months. Come on, they're tired, they're sad. Pick them up, make them smile, give them a little sunshine, give them some reason to be happy. We as Rotarians can spread smiles, not only projects, not only money, not only helping people, but we can also smile. Spread those smiles around the world, and it's going to make it better for everybody. We have met our time limit that we set as a goal, 1.5 hours. Did you have a comment you want to make, Dennis, before I close? No, okay. I seen you waving. We have met our goal of 1.5 hour meeting. Thank you all very, very much. We will be on here next week. And that smiling face over in the corner I have over here, Natalia Kunzer, is going to be she's going to be our speaker next week. So we look forward to having her. We'll see you same time, same channel. And we wish all of you have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? That's a Rotary four-way test.
Now many years ago, in 1932, his company was headed down. He knew not what to do. Then Herbert Taylor started on a quest to keep his team from certain doom. He wrote the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? That's the Rotary four-way test. Adopted some years later by Rotarians worldwide, some simple rules for dealing with the people by your side. A guide for life's decisions, no doubt one of the best. Just 24 quite simple words. The four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? That's the Rotary four-way test. In the class or on the playground with your friends at school, you'll find that hurtful words and actions really aren't too cool. So as you make your choices of what to do or say, remember that old four-way test and you will be okay. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? That's the Rotary four-way test. And will it be beneficial to